When you look at mixed reality, there are a lot of process being defined. Being a new field, there are a lot of ways of approaching design for mixed reality.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Notes of Design. To help support our mission spread knowledge to empower young creatives around the world, we have a very special guest on today's episode. Let's welcome Fabin, who is a design-led innovator. He previously worked with clients like Infosys, Xerox and Adobe. Fabin is expert in the field of AR, VR, creating some brilliant miracles over there with 4 patents under his belt and also winning the Adobe Inventor Award. One of his famous ones was the motion brushes, which was presented at Adobe Max. On this episode, we discussed about what is mixed reality and what are the various toolset or skill set required for someone who wants to enter into this field. And also Fabin shared his creative process in making these great augmented experiences. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. Stay tuned and happy designing everyone. Hi Fabin, welcome to Nodes of Design. It's pleasure hosting you today on our show.
Hey Tej, it's really great to be here, and thank you for inviting me over.
Thank you, Fabin. So Fabin, if you can give a brief about you to our listeners out there.
Yeah, sure. I call myself a creative technologist who works kind of at the merger between creativity and technology. I work on technologies most of the time, like augmented reality, virtual reality, sometimes on artificial intelligence based technologies, gestures, etc. I don't really focus on the technology. Perhaps I kind of look at the more the design oriented side of it, how it could be brought in for specific user oriented purposes, or if we could make some creative expressions out of it. So these are kind of my exploration, and it's been quite a journey so far. That's kind of what I'm right now.
Thank you so much, Fabin. So you said it's quite a journey. So we would love to hear your journey into design and how did you start into the field of design and what are your tips to the young creatives out there?
All right. So my journey into design started perhaps, so I started off as an electronics engineer, and I moved into learning a bit of programming. And my first interest with design was when I started doing graphic design, posters and logos and those kind of things. Then I started my career. I was introduced to the field of interaction design, largely using technology and design, an intersection between these two. That was perhaps 2-3 years down the line in my career, and I was really hooked. I just found that this is the area I want to work in. And then from there, I thought I'll do a professional course in this. I did my master's from IIT Hyderabad. I worked with companies like Infosys, Xerox, and Adobe. And finally, right now, I'm working with a company named Ritia. On the go, I've been exploring sides of creativity and technology, like, how to mix up these, how to use technology to express, making some creative expressions. At my heart, I'm like a maker. I like to make things and find out what all are the possible explorations that I can create out of it, and see if these could be innovations, in the sense that I could tie up business and the design of it and find out if this could be, if I'm working with the product, I would try to see if this would fit with the product and then, move on. So I kind of am at the beginning stage of, say, a design cycle, of a product cycle, I would say. Kind of don't classify design as, research or prototyping or hands-on making mock-ups that's separate. I kind of bring the whole bunch together most of the time. Largely design-led innovation that I've been doing so far covers a bit of my journey, and you get a brief idea of what I've been through so far.
That was a wonderful journey from being an electronic engineer to the great interaction designer. Any tips on to beginners that you want to suggest?
I think so. Most of the time, we get knowledge. We get knowledge from reading books. We get knowledge from watching some of the tutorials or videos out there, or we actually go to take a professional course, and we get knowledge regarding design or creativity or any field for that matter. We actually absorb this knowledge through when we reflect upon things, when we discuss this with others and contemplate it. So I think the real power of getting this knowledge is through contemplation. And for any beginner, I would say it's not about learning a skill. It's not about, I learned Photoshop, I learned XD, I learned, I don't know, any other design tool out there. And, I can make things, I can fairly imitate some of the existing designs out there. But why do people take some design decisions? Those are some of the things which we need to contemplate on. Why is a particular button positioned at a particular place? Why not at some other place? Why is it said that there shouldn't be two CTA buttons in one page? I mean, it's fairly obvious answer, but if you trace back to the origins of it, how did it start off? In the world of virtual reality and augmented reality, how do you design in space? Why it's a completely new field? How do you think about defining a process to design for that? It's not just about grabbing a bunch of skills and exercising it, but if you can discuss and create a dialogue with, say, perhaps your peers or other folks in the area, and getting that essence of it, contemplating on what exactly is how things evolved, that I think would be really valuable for any designer at the beginning or perhaps along the journey as well.
Thank you so much, Fabin, for those interesting insights. So let's begin today's episode, that is with mixed reality. So what is mixed reality and what's the process for designing for these offbeat experiences?
So there is a lot of terminology that has been used around in terms of mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, etc. So I won't go into the details of that, but mixed reality right now there is a consensus that it's about placing. It's not about placing, it's about having virtual objects on top of the real environment, and it actually interacts with the real environment, and we are kind of interacting not just with the virtual objects, but with the environment and the virtual objects together. This doesn't have to be a visual medium. It could also be sound, or it could also be touch, etc. So mixed reality as such, perhaps I'm a person who really think of this as augmented reality, but when you look at mixed reality, there are a lot of process being defined. Being a new field, there are a lot of ways of approaching design for mixed reality being created right now. There are very less tools for designing for such spaces. New tools are evolving over the time. But what is more interesting is to exercise your visualization or perhaps your thinking skills when it comes to how to design in such areas. So one of the exercises which I do myself to visualize more is to think that I always wear an augmented reality headset during my day-to-day workings. Perhaps I wear this hypothetical augmented reality headset in the morning and I work with it till the evening. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I think of how information would be appended on real environment while I'm using it. Say if I am cooking something, what kind of information do I need, and what is the best way to represent that information in AR? Is there a more interactive or maybe even a more fun way to represent those virtual objects or virtual information on space? I also go a little bit to the extent to make this interactive or virtual objects have a better should give a better experience in terms of maybe aesthetics or in terms of the kind of interactions which we have. It could be the way we talk to it using, say, voice, conversing with it. So it's like you have this hypothetical augmented reality headset from day to evening, maybe in a day, and it's kind of you go around doing things, mowing the lawn, and you have a lawnmower. You have the feed of the lawnmower saying that this much is rotating at so much RPM. You could run it for so much minutes more, etc., etc. So this will help us get a feedback on how visualizing for this particular domain. Once we exercise this visualization skill for AR and VR, I think it's really powerful to translate. I mean, really easy to translate it into designs for it. I think that's perhaps the initial skill what is required, and there's a lot of examples for designing for 2D, so it's easy to continue with it. But designing for 3D and immersive space, that requires a lot more novel visualization is what I feel.
That's interesting, Fabin. So, Fabin, if someone wants to experiment with mixed reality, what kind of tool set or the skill set that they require?
I think one of the most easiest accessible tools out there are game engines, perhaps popular being Unity 3D and Unreal. So I myself use Unity 3D a lot. It requires a bit of coding experience, but there are some features of it which helps you to do things without coding, perhaps. But I would say if you can go the extra mile into learning that, it will be really helpful. It's easy to prototype, and there is a lot of integrations in terms of integrating ARKit or ARCore or HoloLens or perhaps Magic Leap, all these headsets with frameworks with Unity, and it's easy to build for them and test out things. And it's very easy to iterate also. So Unity 3D is kind of my go-to tool for this. One other thing I would like to mention is recently Adobe XD had some plugins which helps to prototype for virtual reality. And I've been exploring that, and it's been quite fun to make screens in XD and then just translate it out there into VR and see how it works. I think it's at a very nascent stage in terms of many of the tools out there. I really feel that there is a lot of scope to improve also, and I'm sure there will be a lot of new tools coming up. But I think right now, the best tool would be Unity, perhaps. One last tool, again, I would like to mention if people are into creating experiences for AR experiences is Artivive and Adobe Aero. So Artivive is a very simple to use application where you enter an image and you can add a video which will play over the image when you use an AR device. It's really simple and it's amazing to use. Adobe Aero is yet another AR tool, a lot of features in it, marker based and without marker. And that also is, these are the few tools which I use commonly, and I'm sure there are other tools also I myself wouldn't know about. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Fabin, for those. And pretty much interested in knowing about your creative process and your details of work, as you are the one who claimed 8 patents in a span of 2 years. So, which is like something beyond a normal creative journey. So, what was your process in doing that?
Okay, so this is a question which I get a lot of the times because the patents itself. One thing is that I was patenting within the company Adobe. They had a set process which made it easy. Second thing is that I filed 8 patents, of which 4 has been granted. Patenting is just one part of it, but the whole journey is about, a lot of explorations.
Yes.
A lot of explorations in terms of you will be, since I've been working largely with labs and research centers, I've been iterating through a lot of things. I've been creating day-to-day, creating new things to find out what works and what doesn't work. I think, for example, one day I would be working with something where I'm sculpting some 3D object in augmented reality. Next day, I would be working with sketching in AR or sketching in VR. Next day, I probably might throw all those off and I use my phone to detect different parts of my bike or something. So every day it requires me to churn out these ideas, work my brain towards getting new ideas. And I would say that, say, 50 to 60% of it would be thrown out because it's not viable, or it's too futuristic, or it's not going to fit with some of the things which you are working. Then there are things which we'll have to drop because that's not what our particular lab or team is focusing on. And finally, we'll have to focus on those what is remaining, those what really good ones are remaining. Perhaps one of my managers always said it's not about just ideating. It's about making sure that it becomes an innovation where you tie it up with business and design and engineering and see that it's a viable product by the end of the day. Initial journey is about innovation. Is about ideation, creating ideas. But then you go into the whole phase of researching, talking to people, interviewing them, design it such that a user can actually use such an idea, usefully use such ideas to get a task done, and then finally prototyping it, handing it off to a product team or see if it could be a new, and that way going forward. So I think the whole process is kind of differ from the regular designer, perhaps in the fact that I've worked with more labs and I had the freedom to innovate more in terms of creating new ideas. I think that helped a lot. And this is kind of what I usually follow. I start with ideas and then start researching about it, moving to design, prototyping, and then the further stages of handoff and everything. I think you will get a fairly good idea by that, is what I feel.
Thank you so much, Fabin. But it's quite inspirational to see the thinking ability and the inspirations that you draw from. So, any source of your inspiration that you take when you ideate?
Most of the times, inspiration requires a clear mind, and I'm a person who focuses a lot on spiritual development, personal spiritual development, and I read a lot of books on philosophy and everything. I think my source of inspiration perhaps is a lot of people out there keeps making things. So I look at some of the amazing makers out there. So every time I turn on I switch on Twitter and I see one of the posts by Zach Lieberman, a new generative idea he's working on, he is creating, kind of pushes me to create something. It could be another video by, say, someone who's working in the AR VR field, creates a new prototype of, cutting and pasting real-time objects into a screen.
The digital screens,
Now
yeah.
that suddenly inspires me to think, hey, why didn't I think of it? That's really good idea. That's really useful. And that pushes me to think even more. It always keeps me on the edge in terms of seeing these and getting inspired. Most of the times when I even talk to people, that could be people working in this area, or it could be some of the people I've worked with in my day-to-day life, or people whom I've taught or mentored. I get perspectives of design and creativity from them. And then continuing the conversation, I see areas which I've never imagined before. So I'm always a firm believer that not one person is kind of the person who makes everything. I mean, there is always a lot of people who is behind any new idea or any new creation. So it's not just one person there. So I always feel whenever I open social media and follow some of these amazing people, amazing makers out there, I think that's really my source of inspiration. I could name a few in terms of, like, I could Zach Lieberman, I could say Aiden Wolf, I could talk about some of the amazing works by, John Maeda is one of the biggest figures I've been looking up to. There are a lot of these names which always strike inspiration in me.
Thank you so much, Fabin, for sharing your source of inspiration. On a concluding note, I would love to ask you to recommend any 3 books that you want to recommend to our listeners out there.
Probably, if I have to mention a few, I would say that in philosophy, I think one of my favorite books is Alchemist. I think many would have read about it, but
Yes.
It's something which I read again and again at different phases of my life. Then there is a book which was recommended one of the people I look up to, and the book's name is The Untethered Soul. It sounds a bit, very spiritual and everything. It's a really good read, and it's really worth reading. In the area of perhaps generative design and design as such, I think one of my most favorite book is Form Plus Code by Casey Reyes. Really love the book in terms of how it has been laid out and how it could be a jumpstart for people entering the area of generative design.
Thank you so much, Fabin, for coming and joining with us to spread knowledge. We hope you to see you again in our upcoming episodes and share your knowledge. And
thank you, Tej. I mean, it was really wonderful to be in this platform, and I know it's a recent platform, but it's amazing to see how much you've grown so far, and I really look up to how it will be growing ahead and things evolve out for you. Thank you once again for inviting me over. You know, man.